Listen to the beat. A lot of drama, and I don't want to be distracted by the drama. Do you think I didn't think they would be coming after me? Everybody's been trying to make this about me, and this is not about me. This is about Russell Poole. Today is the 2-year anniversary of his death, and my plan, and we'll see how far I get, is to go through and explain to you the entire Russell Poole theory of what happened the night Tupac Shakur was killed and what happened the night Biggie Smalls was killed. And to put everything into context for you in one sitting. I'm going to do it in fragments, but nobody really cares what Michael Carlin thinks about this. Nobody cares about what so many people think about this. But what they do care about is what did Russell Poole think about this. And there are so many people that have come out and started talking and claiming what Russell Poole thought about this, including people who have written other books. And I was the one that was working with Russell Poole at the end of his life. I'm the one who wrote Chaos Merchants with him. He insisted that every single fact be footnoted as to where it came from. And that's the key to this book. The book is actually something you guys can check out if you want to check it out. It's available all over the internet for free, or if you want to pay 99 cents or whatever it is on Amazon, you can download a digital copy. And nobody cares what I think. Nobody cares what so many people think, but they do care what Russell Poole thought. And so let's get to it. Death Row Records was formed with money from a drug dealer. And so you have a very lethal combination here. You have a criminal defense attorney who has done high-profile cases. You have a record, basically a security guard turned record producer. And I don't want to minimize who he is because he's actually pretty good at the music game. He understands sound and he understands how to make a good record and all those other things. And probably because Dick Griffey taught him how to do it. And so you've got these deep ties into the gangs. You have a criminal defense attorney. You have a drug lord. And the criminal defense attorney is not just anybody. He's somebody who flaunted his ties to the mafia. Best friends with a man by the name of Anthony Brooklier, who I actually had the occasion to hang out with socially in Century City. And so these guys had deep ties into the mafia. So you got gangs, both Crips and Bloods. Suge grew up in a Blood neighborhood, and you have Dr. Dre on the label, and you have Snoop on the label, and Snoop is a heavy Crip neighborhood that he grew up in, and so you got these deep ties into the gangs. And so this is an incendiary situation. And Death Row Records, when you dig into the minutia of it, Freeway Ricky Ross was cellmates with Michael Harris when he had the meeting with Suge Knight that started Death Row Records. And why is that important? Well, it's important for one reason, because this also ties into the U.S. government that was running drugs to fund covert activities. And so all of this is in Death Row Records. Michael Harris telling Suge Knight not to be high profile, not to get on magazine covers, not to be out there. And you have Suge Knight who doesn't listen to Michael Harris. And nobody really knows what the arrangement was besides Michael Harris and Suge and David Kenner. I mean, we can all speculate. They haven't really talked about what that relationship was. But it was definitely a relationship that caused concern for a lot of people. And in fact, that's what leads to the money laundering, the drug trafficking, the racketeering probe by a task force that includes people that are now still involved in this case. And that task force was headed up by an assistant district attorney who was close with Suge Knight. And he was the one that recommended Suge Knight's probation. And so this is definitely an incendiary situation from the get-go. But there's a catalyst that happens, and there's a deepening of relationships. And the catalyst that happens is really the murder of Philip Waldemariam. And so now you have Snoop charged with a crime, and it's premeditated murder, and the likelihood is that he probably did it, and at least he was an accessory to the murder. Philip Waldemariam was shot in the back as he was fleeing. He was trying to get away from those guys, and they gunned him down. And so that's a very serious charge now. You got murder in a park. Philip Waldemariam, is able to walk to the carport. You can see that on a video that we shot. I went and visited the scene. And now you have this whole catalyst that basically changes the way things are done at Death Row Records. Malik was the bodyguard for Snoop. And Malik was supposed to keep Snoop out of trouble. And instead, you've got Snoop supposedly driving Malik around so that they can find this guy, so they can kill him. I mean, that's not a good kind of bodyguard to have. And if you read Malik's book, he no longer has any relationship with Snoop. He no longer has any relationship with anybody. So clearly, once they used up Malik, they spit him out. Well, there's a big problem with Malik even. In the middle of the night, he is sitting in jail all alone after everybody else has been bailed out. And he's not going to make bail because he's confessed to being the shooter. And so it looks like he's going to be the one that is going to stand trial for this whole thing. And the weight's all going to fall on him. And he, in the middle of the night, calls the jailer and makes a confession that he wasn't the only one doing the shooting. That Snoop also did some of the shooting. And that causes panic in the camp. And one of the things that probably saved Snoop was making that first phone call to Suge Knight, and Suge Knight calling up David Kenner. And David Kenner has a cool head about all this, and a plan gets devised about how they're going to defeat this murder trial. There's even rumors that Dr. Dre was in the vehicle. So this would be a disaster for Death Row Records, especially if Dre was in the vehicle. And that's been being talked about since back then. That's not something I'm making up. That's something that's been being talked about a lot since then, since the murder happened. And so think about this young record label that's just had The Chronic come out. It's doing very well, and there's a lot of promise for this young record label, and now they have this crisis. And the crisis is going to send everybody into panic mode. And they're going to have to figure out how they're going to defeat a premeditated murder charge against Snoop. And so we'll get into that in the next installment. Until then, and this is the Russell Poole theory. This is part 1, and I'm going to try and get through the entire Russell Poole theory today on the anniversary of Russell Poole's meeting with the Los Angeles County Sheriffs to talk about sheriff corruption, where he died in the meeting with the sheriffs. Quail made you famous. Your voice made you dangerous. Victim of jealousy, pour out your Hennessy. Death is calling me.